Good morning. Welcome to worship with the community of First Unitarian Church of Omaha. I'm Reverend Shari Woodbury, the congregation's minister. Whether you're attending online or in person, here on Sunday morning or sometime later in the week, I'm glad you've chosen to plug into this community. We come together to worship, which from the Latin means to remember that which is of worth. And so we reground ourselves each week in our highest values. A special welcome to visitors. This congregation is a community of all ages and abilities. It's a community with a rainbow of gender and sexual identities. It's a community of diverse cultural and class backgrounds. We draw from many sources of inspiration and share common liberal religious values. Whoever you may be, we welcome you to bring your whole self into this space. If you're joining us online, I encourage you to create a YouTube account and sign into it when you attend that way. This will allow you to participate in the comments for joys and concerns, and sometimes other things, including today. Everyone is invited to subscribe to our channel and share videos you like with others that you think might appreciate the messages. For those here in person, after the service every week, we go downstairs to the common room for coffee and conversation. That's the room directly below the sanctuary, and there are stairs out either door that will get you there. I have one announcement to share. If you were here last week, you know that our music director, Judy Unger, does amazing multicultural music, including African drumming. She had just come back from Ghana, and she is inviting us all to the Summer Drumming Camp concert, free public performance on this coming Saturday, August 3rd at 7 p.m. So if you'd like to hear more African drumming from some wonderful young people, you can check that out. Our church occupies the traditional treaty lands of the Omaha and Otoe-Missouri tribal nations whose sovereignty existed long before the state of Nebraska. We'd also like to express our respect to the Ponca, Winnebago, and Santee Sioux tribes, all of Nebraska, and many others represented in our area. Let us all continue to educate ourselves and support causes, charities, and rights of Indigenous peoples in our area. Again, welcome to worship. At this time, I'm going to ask for a volunteer to come forward and light our chalice. Perhaps someone who appreciated the karaoke last night. All right, we got two singers and music appreciators. And if you like, you can join me in the chalice lighting words that are in the order of service. All together. Spark of the Spirit, cupped in earth's embrace, light of love, alive in all creation. As we kindle this flame, we rekindle our connection to the sacred web of life. Thank you, and thank you for the music. Welcome to this place of possibility. This is love's hearth, the home of hope, a refuge for minds in search of truth, unfolding, ever beautiful, ever strange. Here, compassion is our shelter, freedom our protection from the storms of bigotry and hate. In this abode, may we find comfort and courage. Here may our sight become vision to see the unseen, to glimpse the good that is yet to be. I invite you to rise if that feels good to your body and join me in singing our opening hymn, number 346, Come Sing a Song with Me. Each week, we practice sharing with others through a community offering. Half of undesignated gifts are donated to a local cause, which resonates with Unitarian Universalist values. If you're online or prefer to give with your smartphone, you can use the QR code or link in the program. Our Share the Plate recipient for July is Open Arms Trans Social, also known as OATS. OATS welcomes the trans community of all ages, gender identities, and gender expressions, drawing people from well beyond the Omaha area. While OATS centers the trans experience as people lift one another up in the spirit of fellowship and love, they also invite cisgender allies, family members, and partners to attend as well. This group meets at Second Unitarian Church. I thank you for giving with a generous heart as you're able as we hear this piece from Masane. We come to the time for sharing of joys and concerns. When we share with others those things that are uplifting us in our lives, others can join us in celebration. And when we share those challenges we face, others can surround us with their care. Colin, what have you got from online?
From Cindy Nather. Cindy will be going home this week after a week in the hospital and 3 weeks in rehab. She and her cat are ecstatic. I didn't put this down in writing, but I just wanted to say what a great time we had at the karaoke last night. I want to give a special thank you to all of the volunteers that made it possible.
Also, thanks to everyone who helped us give a proper fitting send-off to Kat Dixon, our office administrator, which we did at last night's gathering. And if you didn't have a chance to say anything yet, you can still leave a card or write a note on the whiteboard in the garden entry for Kat if you like. I also want to acknowledge that there have been a lot of events in the nation and the world. Every day there's something new happening in Israel and Gaza. There's something new happening in politics here at home, and riding those waves can be, it's a lot. So I'm glad we're here together in community as we hold all of that. As we call into our circle of care, both those who have spoken and those who remain silent, I invite you to sing number 391, Voice Still and Small. On the wings of this music, I invite you into a time of contemplation. You may wish to check your posture, gently close your eyes, and make your hands comfortable in your lap. After a common prayer, we'll hold a time of shared silence, which I will end with the sound of the bell. Voice still and small, may I never lose the ability to hear your call deep inside me. May I listen to that knowing and not discount or dismiss my own doubts and concerns. My intuition, my body's awareness are precious forms of knowledge. Power of reason, heritage of this free faith. Abandon me not when I need you most. May my observations and my logical mind guide me in the exercise of my best judgment. Spirit of love, when I long for connection, help me not only to seek it out, but also to be patient and discerning where I truly belong. Let me honor my natural need for community without sacrificing my own beliefs or boundaries. May wisdom shepherd me through all the years as again and again I find my place and the great web of connection. Amen. So may it be. A time for your own silent meditation or prayer. Are you up for a pop quiz? It's back to school time at my house. I'm going to make several statements, and let's see if you can guess what kind of community I am describing. Is it a Unitarian Universalist congregation? Is it a cult? Ready? This kind of community tends to attract bright, idealistic people, as well as people in periods of life transition. Members of this kind of community hold beliefs that some might consider strange. This kind of community, at its best, gives its members a sense of belonging and purpose. How many think I was describing a Unitarian Universalist church? Okay. How many think I was describing a cult? How many think I was describing both? Okay, I won't ask how many think that Unitarian Universalism is a cult. Well, if you said I was describing a UUU church, ding, 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 you were correct. If you said I was describing a cult, you are also correct. Trick question. So there's definitely some common ground. I chose this topic today for two main reasons. For one, Unitarian Universalism doesn't fit everyone's idea of a church. So UUs and churches like ours sometimes do get questions from other people in their lives about whether this community is a cult. I know at least one person in our congregation who's had that experience. So I hope after today, if you ever get that question, you'll feel better prepared to respond. My other main reason for addressing this question is to spread awareness about how to recognize problematic groups and make wise decisions about one's own involvement. If you didn't know, I've been doing a deep dive into cults over the past half year or so. And one of the things I've learned is that some of the very qualities that make someone more likely to get involved in a UU church, bright, empathetic, sometimes quirky people who value community, who want to make a difference, who have open minds, and who often first come here when they are lonely or hurting or searching. Those are some of the very same qualities that make someone more vulnerable to cult recruitment. And nobody joins a group thinking that they're joining a cult. There's always something good that has drawn their interest. I happen to speak from personal experience as well as from the research that I've been studying. So here's what I'm going to do. I made a top 10 list of characteristics of a cult. And I'm going to briefly introduce a few of them at a time, and then I'll invite you to talk with your neighbors for a few minutes. Or if you're watching from home alone, you can jot down your own thoughts and mark where you think Unitarian Universalism fits on each item. This list is on the back of your order of service with a little rating scale you can mark. So 1 is not at all culty, and 5 is the most extreme that you've heard of or can imagine. Resistance is futile type cult. And toward the end, we'll see what the judgment of this group is on this question of, is Unitarian Universalism a cult? Now, if you're watching live from home and you want to play along, you can use the score sheet as we go through the list and then share your total in the chat when we get to the end. And the score sheet is on the order of service, which you can download off of the church website. Now, I want to point out a couple of things before we start through the list. First, cults are quite varied. They can be small or large, obscure or well-known. They can be very subtle, blending into mainstream more readily, or they can be very overtly out there. It's not all Heaven's Gate or NXIVM, or that group with the Hollywood stars, the one that was created by a pulp fiction writer that says it's a church. I'm not going to say the name. It's not all the kind of extreme examples that tend to wind up in documentaries and podcasts. Cults are also not all religious. They can be Christian or Eastern or New Age. They can also be political or commercial or appear to be about therapy or self-improvement or leadership. They can be in person, and increasingly, they are online. So that's one thing I wanted to share. A second, I want to make super clear that if anyone here has ever been in a group that was somewhat culty, to whatever degree, that is not going to change my regard for you one bit. Because chances are there are several of us who have had a brush with a high control group. Sometimes people get looked down upon for that. Well, as some of you know, over the past year, I had my own set of painful revelations about a group I was involved with as a young adult. And I came to recognize in this recent time that it was actually pretty darn culty. So we're not going to be assuming the worst about anyone who has a direct experience with a cult. Instead, I assume that all humans at some point in their lives are vulnerable to the strong appeal of a cultic group because cults speak to universal human needs. Further, I assume that people who manage to come out the other side and find themselves again are resilient people from whom there is much to learn. Okay, so remember, I'm going to invite you to break into small groups and discuss these. I'll give you 3 before the first breakout. As we start, can I have a drum roll? Pew roll. On my top 10 list of culty qualities, number 1 is being authoritarian. The high control in high control group, which is another name for cult, is typically exerted by the leader or the founder of the group. That person's word is law. Others are supposed to turn to that authority for their worldview, as well as for day-to-day decision-making in the group, sometimes even for personal decisions about their work, or relationships, their clothing, or diet. Members will be socialized to revere, adore, or at least fear the leader. Number 2 is an utter lack of accountability for the person or cadre that holds the ultimate authority in the group. Not only do people inside the group lack real opportunities to hold leadership to account, the leaders do not answer to any higher authority. There's no one outside them. There's no credentialing body for cult leaders. When cults get big, the leaders have created their own empires, and so they are a law unto themselves. If the leader is a charismatic chameleon, as they often are, they may be skilled at nurturing others' trust in them, even when it isn't really warranted. Some experts call them trust bandits. So people may be slow to question this arrangement. Why wouldn't I trust the wisest person in my group? And number 3 on my top 10 list of cult qualities is no dissent. RBG would never join a cult, I guess. Members of a controlling group may be guided to ask their sensitive questions to leaders or mentors in private. This way, responders can use it as a teaching opportunity to help the person learn and internalize the group's worldview, which will have its own internal logic. In other words, it leads to a one-on-one indoctrination session. Or they may give answers that are evasive or downright deceptive to legitimate questions. Alternatively, any doubt expressed may be quickly shut down and the person socially punished. In any case, new people are soon towing the line. It's just not acceptable to have a different point of view. Okay, so here's your first opportunity to discuss those first three criteria with your neighbors, 2 or 3 people. If you're not near someone, you can move near, and if you're someone who's just visiting and you don't know very much about UUism, you can share from your impressions of if you've looked online and so forth, or just listen is fine too. We'll take a few minutes. really curious to hear how your scores come out at the end. So a tradition that waxes poetic about the democratic process and practices it in our congregations looks like a poor candidate for authoritarianism to me, but your minister works in partnership with a board of trustees elected by the church. I have the sense that people usually value my perspective and want to hear it and take it into account, but if my word is law, that is news to me. As for accountability, I'm accountable to the board of trustees and to the whole congregation. You called me, and you all could choose to part ways with me if you wanted to. I'm also accountable to my colleagues through the UUU Ministers Association and the Covenant and Code of Conduct of that group. And I'm accountable to the Ministerial Fellowship Committee of our National UUU Association, which credentials ministers and can remove ministers from fellowship for just cause. So a lot of accountability there, actually. As for doubt and dissent, I see this as a community that works to make space for different points of view. We have a big tent in terms of theology or philosophy. We don't expect everyone to have the same transcendent ideology or to think the same way. And most big issues are decided through the democratic process with dialogue and voting. Let's take the next set of cultic criteria. Number 4. Drum roll. Okay. An immense emotional pressure. This can cut both ways. It can seem like positive attention, or it can be negative. The positive attention is especially common and heavy when someone is new in a high control group. They call it love bombing. You heard that phrase? Those good feelings of belonging and being cared for are one of the hooks that draw people in and may keep them. But love bombing tends to fade or become more hit and miss after a person is well established in a culty group. Negative pressure may then creep in and accelerate. Subtle peer pressure is very common. The pressure can be more overt. Some groups will even have public feedback sessions where people are systematically criticized in front of other group members, supposedly for their own growth and development. Shame is a very powerful emotion that is often used by these groups. A combination of positive and negative emotional dynamics can be especially effective because it creates what psychologists call disorganized attachment. That's where the person or group that you hope will comfort you, because they have before, remember the love bombing, is also the source of fear or pain. This puts a person's nervous system in a kind of no-win situation. Like, I want that comfort, but is that what you're going to give me, or are you going to be mean to me? And so that keeps the person anxious and also dulls their ability to think. What about number 5, excess use of mind-altering practices? What could these be? What could be mind-altering practices? Any ideas? Oh, drugs. Yes, that's absolutely true, drugs. Maybe long periods of meditation, ecstatic dancing, whirling dervishes, speaking in tongues in some contexts, even listening to mesmerizing or just endless boring talks are things that can dull a person's mind. No comment, please. When such things are done for long periods of time, they short-circuit critical thinking. And that's true for public denunciation sessions, too. This category can also include working long hours or getting little sleep. Exhaustion is a mind-altering state, as any new parent knows. These kinds of practices make a person more emotionally vulnerable, more malleable to the group's subtle indoctrination program, and more compliant with the direction that the leaders are giving them. And how about number 6, dependency and isolation? High control groups want their members to be dependent upon the group. Outside influences could lead to questioning one's participation in the group. So cults often work to isolate people from their family or friends who are not involved with the group. This may include getting group members to live together, or it can simply be coaching people to make a psychological break from the people they used to be the closest to. Other forms of dependency can also come into play, like when members depend on the group to provide their food and shelter. That makes it much harder to leave. Okay, I invite you to turn to your discussion partners and talk over the items in number 4 through 6. How would you rate First Unitarian Church of Omaha? Immense emotional pressure. Well, I hope people feel truly cared for when they get involved in this community. I don't think we do excessive love bombing plus negative peer pressure, but you tell me if I'm wrong, because I would want to work on that. And peer pressure, of course, is hard to avoid entirely in any group of humans. Now, shame, though, is an emotion I, for one, rarely find helpful. Having been involved in what turns out to have been an actual cult, though, I can tell you I have never felt the sort of cognitive dissonance and powerful peer pressure in a UU setting that I felt in my old culty group. Excess use of mind-altering practices? I think that requires no comment, just no. As for dependency and isolation, at our best, I think our church does the opposite. It helps people build stronger, broader social networks. It offers opportunities to develop oneself as a leader and as a person, expanding one's capabilities and sense of self. And certainly no one's becoming dependent on the church to put food on the table or a roof over their head on an ongoing basis. All right, are you ready for the final four? Drum roll. Number 7, there is one true way, the group's way. Those who aren't following that way are regarded as unfortunate at best. At worst, they're seen as lost or doomed, immoral or unworthy. Relatedly, many culty groups treat those who leave poorly, shunning them or speaking ill of them. Leaders may also cultivate fear about how poorly members would fare if they left the group. Number 8, the group expertly manipulates people. Leaders tap the group process and transcendent ideology to use people, to get their time, their skills, their money, their idealism directed to boosting the group and especially the leader, because that's ultimately what it's all about. The only boundary they want you to have is the one that keeps you in the us of the group against the them that is everybody outside the group. But the process of indoctrination is carried out slowly and skillfully. It's very carefully paced, so members don't notice it happening. Basically, if you're not a sociopath yourself, you are probably vulnerable to manipulation in the right circumstances. Number 9, deception and worse. In a high control group, those highest up have accepted that the ends justifies the means. At the extremes, some groups even engage in criminal behavior, which they rationalize in support of their mission. Almost all cultic groups engage in deception. There's a pyramid structure in a cult where only those at the very top know the full story, and you have to pass loyalty tests to climb up that pyramid and get more access to the inside information. Some experts actually consider deception to be the defining feature of a cult. Of course, it prevents critical thinking and good decision-making by members of the group because you don't know what you don't know, right? You can't. How can you make a decision based on information you don't have? People would not affiliate or stay if they knew the truth about the leader, about where the money goes, about whether the backstory is true, about unsavory activities. And lastly, number 10, high control groups are obsessed with recruiting more people and raising more money. Now, when I read this one, I have to say, as someone who's always been in the nonprofit sector, I thought, that sounds like every nonprofit I've ever worked for. What agency isn't always seeking more volunteers, more funding, if they're membership-based, more members? But we're talking about above and beyond the usual level of outreach and funding. If it's a religious group, it will be quite proficient at proselytizing. Systematic, lots of people involved in it. That's basically what they do. You gotta save the world one soul at a time. Okay, last discussion break. Talk amongst yourselves and rate First Unitarian. And when you've got them all scored, add up your scores and get the total number there at the bottom. All right, you've made your scores. I'll make a couple of final comments before we have the big reveal. Regarding the one true way, if that was our modus operandus here, I would expect everyone to share my theological point of view, which I do not. I'm not sure y'all even know what my theological point of view is. And I would not encourage people to go somewhere else and even help them consider alternatives if someone comes to the conclusion that this isn't the right fit for them, which is my attitude. I've had those kind of conversations with people before. And I suspect most of you would say the same. We want people to find a place where they feel like it reflects their values, their beliefs, their sense of who they are. Regarding number 8, I sure hope we don't use people up. I worry sometimes about our ex-board presidents, but that's a special case. People are often run down, just exhausted when they get out of a cult. They've had no boundaries for years. Here, my aspiration is to welcome and honor the healthy boundaries that each person sets for themselves. And that's something we all have to work on together. Okay, I'm curious where y'all came out. If you're watching live online, you can put in the chat what total you got, and I'll share that momentarily. I've got a handy-dandy chart in front of me here to gauge where First Unitarian landed according to your ratings. So for the groups here, if your score for First Unitarian totaled between 10 and 20, I invite you to stand or hold your sheet up high. That's saying there's hardly a whiff of cultiness here. Okay, I'd say that's over half of the group. Okay. Who landed between 21 and 30? A few warning signs, nothing irreversible, no? Anybody come out between 31 and 40? Lots of red flags? No? Okay. How about 41 to 50? Phew. Okay. All right. Let's see. From our online attendees here, Mark came out with a total of 7, which is below the chart, so we must be negative on negative on some things. John M. thought that numbers 4 and 5, there could be a little something going on there, but not a characteristic of the church in general. All right. Well, during coffee hour after the service, I'm going to hang out at one of the tables and welcome anyone who wants to talk more about cults, your experience, my experience, Unitarian Universalism, anything related to all of that. We can chat about that. I also welcome appointments. And if you'd like to read more about this topic, including my personal cult experience, I've been writing about it online at medium.com. You can Google my name to find those free articles, and I'll include a link in the upcoming newsletter. So thank you for playing today's episode of Is This Group a Cult? With any luck, there won't be a next time. But if there is, I hope you'll be better prepared to assess the health or riskiness of a group that has piqued your curiosity, so that the groups you get involved with are ones that genuinely care about your well-being and are life-giving for you. May it be so. Amen. I invite you to rise for our closing hymn. This song is a reminder that there's not one right way, but many possibilities. If you don't know the song, just catch the spirit of it. It doesn't matter if we make mistakes. Number 1019 in the Teal Hymnal.
We cleared off the table.
grateful for all the places of belonging where true mutuality flourishes. Let us maintain and create such spaces of free and authentic connection that others too may be nourished. May we live in the spirit of everything possible now and for the rest of our days. May it be so. Amen.